Look, I'm back in my boomer chair and I've got my prop piston and rod again because I wanted to finish that conversation we started about a week ago. I did a video called, When Did Our Civilization Forget How to Build the Internal Combustion Engine? A lot of views, got a lot of comments on it. And it was kind of a half-finished video because it was really starting to run long. And there was ground that I wanted to cover in it that I felt, well, let's just save it for another video. Here we are. So in that video, we were talking about the absurdity of planned obsolescence. Is it a conspiracy or is it just coincidence that things evolved this way? But we were talking about absurdities like wet belt oil pumps and unrebuildable engine blocks. And I mentioned transmissions in that video because I wanted to talk about transmissions, and I said I'll save that for another video. Well, almost as if like the universe put this together. Last night I'm flipping through YouTube and I come across a video by a fellow named Jason Samko, and it was called Fear of Maintenance. All right. Now, before I get into that, you have to understand, it's starting to come around. People are starting to realize, and I see more and more YouTube videos, more and more people recognizing the fact that new cars, stuff built in the last 10 years or so, thereabouts, and into the future, stuff they're putting out right now, is not repairable. There is no hope for survivability on these things. Jason's video popped up along those same lines, right? You know, fear of maintenance. And transmissions, he was talking about an incident that he had receipts for it. He had heard about an incident where somebody had a new Toyota Tacoma hybrid, and this thing needed a transmission. What could it cost? What could a freaking transmission cost in a Toyota pickup truck, right? A mid-sized Toyota pickup truck. Like $5,000, okay? Which is, I'd cringe. $5,000, that's insanity, right? $8,000, absurd. $27,500 was the bill on this thing. $27,500 for a transmission. Why? Because a hybrid transmission. And it also has a control module that goes with it. So it's just this whole integrated package. There were reasons, I guess, why that particular one was so expensive. Although, I mean, what could the reasons possibly be? This is a mid-size Toyota pickup truck, right? But nevertheless, $27,500. Now, in this same video, Jason was also talking about things like $8,000 turbocharger replacements. Could you imagine $8,000? No, it's not like you just go on eBay and pick up a teriyaki tornado for $250 and slam it in there. No, these factory, turbocharger systems are all specially designed, specially fit, special, so you can only use that part, right? Very exacting, very specific. And if you sneeze even a little bit, the computer system in the car is going to reject it, right? You're married to dealer parts and the price and availability of dealer parts when it comes to these things. He was also talking about $2,000 plus water pump jobs because they can't just stick a water pump where it can be replaced, right? No, they got to make a whole thing where you got to pull half the engine apart to change the water pump. Just like the wet belts, right? Thousands, $5,000, $6,000 to replace a normal wear item. It's a maintenance item. All right, this is insanity. And like I said, it's not, I mean, I've been preaching this stuff for years, okay? And now it's finally reached the point that it's becoming obvious to everybody. The automotive industry has run amok, and it has the least able of us in the crosshairs, right? This is a bad thing because ultimately, and Jason reached this conclusion in his video too, ultimately what's happening is the automakers are removing the third tier of the chain, right? The car ownership chain. So what would the third tier be? And unless you were born rich, you've been part of the third tier. So first tier is the obvious one. You go buy a brand new car. You're the primary customer. You're who the automakers really care about. They got to get you in the showroom and max it out and get everything they can out of you for this new car sale. Obviously, that's their business. Now, the second tier is that car, when it's sold down the road, let's say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road, and it's a prime premium used car, right? It still has life left in it. The body's nice, the interior is nice, paint's nice. It's a good used car. Generally, this happens 70,000, 100,000 miles. You know it's still got another 50 to 100 in it, right? So it's a good used car. That's the second tier. The third tier is what happens afterwards, okay? So now, the way these cars are built these days, with these major systems, or I should say minor systems that now require major repairs, big dollar repairs, and dealer parts and dealer service, when the second owner gets to the point that he's got to do the $5,000 wet belt and the $2,000, that's just so insane, the $2,000 water pump, and the all of the things, right? All of these major systems that start to fail at that 150,000 mile mark, that's where the second owner ditches the car. Now, in the old days, the second owner would just put the car up for sale on the newspaper, they'd stick it on their front lawn with a for sale sign on it, and the third tier buyer would come along and buy it. Now, the third tier buyer is the young guy, or the young person, I should say, that's just starting out in life. They don't have a job. They need a basic vehicle to get to work, to get a job. People who are up against it. You know, a family that's got a couple of kids and big bills, and they really can't afford to splurge on a car. So the husband's going to buy the car and tinker along with it, and he'll do the water pump and the tune-up and fix the oil leaks as they happen. Doesn't matter, they're going to nurse it along. This is the third tier. The third tier is what keeps the auto parts business going. The third tier is what keeps small independent shops going. The third tier is huge, right? It's bigger than the other two, more or less combined. As big as the other two combined. Well, the way things are going today, that third tier is being eliminated. Right? The way the industry has evolved, the way the cars are evolving, the third tier is disappearing. And this is going to lead to some dislocations, disruptions, problems bigger than you may realize. Much bigger than you realize. Now, for this part of this discussion, I need you to open your mind a little bit, okay? And I need you to step outside that little box of, well, this is what my situation is, right? And let's look at the bigger situation. Let's look at the macro picture, right? Let's get the view from the moon, all right? And see the bigger. I've talked about this in previous videos, but I have to do it again, right? Because the importance of the internal combustion engine and its capabilities in our civilization, to our species, is greatly underestimated. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. I'm sitting here in this chair, okay? My feet on the floor of the shop, and ahead of me is a gravel driveway, and then a concrete slab, and then the road. All right, very important you understand this. Where are you sitting right now? Where are you watching me from? Are you on your couch? Your feet are on the floor in your living room? Are you sitting on the toilet? Your feet on the tile floor in the toilet? Where are you watching this from? All right. Look down at the floor. I'll look down at my floor. Understand that no matter where you are in the modern world, in the civilized world, okay, we're directly connected. There is a direct circuit. There's a direct circuit between me and you, whoever you are, wherever you are. And it's all joined via roads and bridges and tunnels and driveways and all of that. It's all linked, and it's all accessible through the capabilities of the internal combustion engine. And our entire civilization, right? Now, you never really thought about that, did you? Okay? Think about this. Where are you right now? And look where I am right now. And there's a bag of Doritos in a 7-Eleven in Wichita, Kansas. Okay? Right, I know, on the shelf, and that shelf is sitting on the floor. You and me both have a direct line, a direct circuit to that bag of Doritos that's on the shelf at the 7-Eleven, and we never leave this manufactured surface, the circuit that joins all of civilization. Think about that. There are relays within the circuit. Of course, there are relays like airplanes that fly over oceans, or boats that fly over, sail over oceans. Of course, there are relays within this system, within this circuitry, but nevertheless, we're all joined. And all of it has been evolved. All of it has been laid out over the last 125 years, 130 years, based on the capabilities of the internal combustion engine. You live where you live, and you work where you work, and you have the life that you have. Good, bad, or otherwise, doesn't make any difference. It all goes back to the capabilities of the internal combustion engine and the support systems around it, and what it's able to do. It's profound, okay? The internal combustion engine has permanently altered the course of human evolution. It's molded society to its limitations, to its capabilities and its limitations. Think about that, right? And I'm not stretching this even a little bit. I mean, I'm not like exaggerating even slightly. I'm probably underplaying it, if anything. So what does this have to do with planned obsolescence and the elimination of that third tier? Well, traditionally, right, during the course of this growing evolution that our species is now in the midst of, the societal evolution, it was all based on the accessibility of this device to everybody, okay? So some people just laid out the cash, and some people had to lay in their driveway and struggle to work on it and fix things and so on and so forth on their beaters. But either way, right, everybody had equal access to these things. But when I say equal, it was there for them. That you could get, if you couldn't afford a new car or even a good used car, you go buy a beater, you buy something on the way to the junkyard. Most of us is a car channel, so most of us have started that way, right? We didn't go out and buy a new car first. We didn't get a good used car first. We went and we found, just something that was like hammered and hurled and says, yeah, I can rebuild that engine. I can put a transmission in that thing. I could do whatever it is. I'll get it running, and we could keep these things running indefinitely. It made access to the world accessible to everybody more or less equally. Well, now evolution is taking the third tier away, right? Cars are not, vehicles are not designed to go past that second owner, to end up in the hands of, let's say, the less privileged or the struggling young, the poor, right? The people with, I have more ambition and skill than I have money, right? Those people are being eliminated. And along with that, big portions of the aftermarket industry, auto parts stores, the aftermarket auto parts industry relies on the third tier. The third tier is what keeps it going. It's defined by the third tier because the first two tiers are only going to the dealership. But the second tier is, because of warranty reasons, the second tier is mostly going to the dealership. They'll do some, regular, mechanic, bring it to a regular shop. But for the most part, they're dealing with the extended warranties. The point is, it's that third tier, right? The bottom rung, the biggest part of the automotive industry that's slowly being squeezed and suffocated out of existence, right? This is what it means when you don't have cars that are the planned obsolescence. Now you can't really fault the automakers because you can and you can't, right? You can't really fault them because primarily their job is to sell new cars. I mean, period, the end, right? That's what they exist for, build and sell new cars. But at the same time, in the past, they did recognize the importance of having a car that will survive long term, that can be passed down from person to person, a car that was mechanically accessible to anybody. And the perfect example of this was Ford when they introduced the Maverick back in 1970. The television commercials that they ran for this thing all talked about how easy this car was to service. In fact, one of the videos, and I remember watching this when I was a kid, one of the commercials was where they had a bunch of stewardesses, before they called them flight attendants, when they were all, girls, right? Like they're supposed to be. They had a group of stewardesses put together a Maverick just to show this is so easy that stewardesses can do it. This is the way cars are marketed. Yes, they're selling to the primary, right? But they're also saying, look, if you can't afford to bring it to the dealer and have us do the work at the premium prices, well, then you can afford to do it yourself. And it's so easy to work on. Cars were featured that way. There were other cars that built their reputation, not necessarily American cars, but like Soviet era Russian cars that were, their whole reputation, Ladas and stuff like that, their whole reputation, their reason for being was the fact that anybody could work on them. The parts were so easy, so accessible, so, simple cars. So, this is a problem. This is a problem that goes way beyond just the car hobby and the enthusiasts and way beyond just the cost of new cars. The cost of new cars is another thing. Again, you've got all of this technology that's stuffed into these cars. The price, the cost of these things, the average transaction price is now $50,000, like $49,000, $50,000. The average transaction price. It's mind-boggling. It's what a lot of people make in a year, right? Full time. Here's your salary. If you make $1,000 a week, right? You bring home $1,000 a week. Well, you're going to work a whole year to cover this car. If you were to buy it cash, let's say, you're going to pay even more than that if you're making payments on it, because there's interest on top of that. So spread it out over 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, however long they're spreading these loans out for. This is what you're paying for this thing. It's absurd. It's way out of proportion, way out of scale. And the little guy, like I said, the person just starting out, the guy that just needs basic transportation to get to and from his job, being squeezed out of the picture. And this has much bigger long-term societal implications than anybody is recognizing right now. This really is an evolving crisis, because 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road from now, so the average car on the road right now is like 12 years old, okay? Now, they're still, those 12-year-old cars are still kind of right there at the crossroads between repairable and non-repairable. Well, 5 or 10 years from now, it's these cars that are being built today, post-COVID cars, that are going to be the average. People are not going to be able to maintain them. Electric cars, that was a you talk about that whole thing about our civilization being laid out based on the capabilities and limitations of the internal combustion engines. That was the thing about the whole electric car thing, that it was the big elephant in the room, right? The electric car has a completely different set of needs, a completely different set of circumstances that it operates under that don't fit the entire world that we've built around the capabilities of this. So for that reason alone, the electric car, unless you were to completely tear down society and rebuild it in the image of the electric car, it doesn't stand a chance other than for limited use. And it's fine for limited use, but you could never take the place of the internal combustion engine. Our world is built around the internal combustion engine. And so when there are problems, when the internal combustion engine, right, as a macro thing, not just the small block sitting in your car, right, but when the internal combustion engine has a problem, we as a species have a major problem. This is something that I have no answers. I have no answers. I mean, for us who are like, enthusiasts, right? We're gearheads, we're car people. Yeah, go buy stuff that's pre-2010, pre-2005. Buy stuff from the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or the 60s, because those cars can be maintained eternally. There's nothing that can't be repaired. With some effort and some time and some cost, of course, there's nothing that can't be repaired indefinitely. And you can't say the same thing about these newer cars. It's a shame. It really is. I go to pull apart. I see these perfect cars, not a scratch, not a dent. The interior is perfect. You know, in let's say 20 years ago, they would be sitting on the front line of a used car, you know, dealer with like flags on them because this is great stuff. But no, they're in pull apart because they're mechanically totaled. They're mechanically totaled. They've bounced from shop to shop to shop. The parts cannon keeps getting fired at them. Everybody gives up, and they eventually end up in the scrapper. It's absurd. It's a waste, and it's something that we need to collectively pay attention to. I don't have any answers. I don't know if there are any answers. The idea behind these videos isn't to, like, you know, say, here, do this. It's just kind of like to get the conversation going, to make you guys aware, you know, that there are serious problems here. And that third tier, something that we've all been a part of, like I said, unless you were born rich, but that third tier, we've all been a part of because we either bought those cars or we maintain those cars, you know, the down the road, right? You know, they're the junker, the beater with a heater, right? So much of the world that we enjoy as car people, right, revolves around that. And that is what's being eliminated right now. Yeah, there are issues. Like I said, I have no answers, but it is a discussion that I think we need to have collectively. And I think the more industrious and creative among us are going to come up with some pretty revolutionary ideas. I just don't know what they are yet. All right. Back to regular car stuff now. I get people bitching at me all the time. Nobody wants to see you talk. Why do you like you to work on cars? No, these videos get like many more views than those videos. I do them all because I love it. I'm a hands-on gearhead. I love working on stuff. I don't really love working on stuff in front of a camera, but I love working on stuff in general. But, you know, this is part of it. This is part of it. I'll see you tomorrow.